Welcome to Backstage. I'm your host, Steve Barron, and today we are privileged to have with us the new sensation in the world of jazz, 20-year-old trumpeter, Wynton Marsalis. And welcome to Backstage in Syracuse, Wynton.
All right,
it's great to have you. I guess things started for you back a long time ago when you were about 6 years old, and Al Hurt gave you your first trumpet.
Right.
You want to reflect on this and tell us about it?
Well, that was when I got my first trumpet, but actually I didn't really get serious about playing until I was 12. So like there was a 6-year lapse there.
Right, you weren't taking any lessons or studying or nothing like that?
I mean, I played in the school band, but I wasn't really playing, you know what I mean? It was just a way to get out of academic classes.
All right, so what were your early influences back then? Like, you must have been listening to?
Basketball and football.
No music?
No
Not really that music
no,
oriented?
not when I was 6, no.
Until
Never.
12, and then that's when
12.
you started, and then what were you, what?
I listened to Clifford Brown. The thing that got me really interested was hearing Clifford Brown and Miles Davis.
Right.
And then from there, I just started learning more and more about jazz, acoustic jazz, and what it really, the way it really is. And once I became interested, it was just a learning process.
Right. What kind of influence did your father have on you, Ellis Marsalis?
Well, he was a great influence because I could always go to clubs and hear him play. You know, so even before I became consciously interested in playing jazz, I was hanging out at clubs because I like the nightlife and stuff. And,
so did you meet a lot of the people he played with, and a lot of?
I knew all of the musicians that he played with.
Right.
You know, so and plus he had a lot of records, and the history of jazz is kept on the record.
Right.
So records are the main way for a younger musician to learn how to play.
Oh, you picking things off the albums, or
you
trumpet?
learn
Was it always
albums.
the trumpet that you were interested in?
No, you learn anything. Monk, who's a piano player, Train. You know, for those who don't know this.
Right. John Coltrane.
Train. I listen to Train a lot, or Sonny Rollins. You know, any instrument.
Right. So what kind of influence, you were studying under John Longo for a while, right? What kind of influence did he have on you?
This man has his notes together. You know, he was my first trumpet teacher when I was 12, and I decided that I wanted to learn how to play. I knew that the first thing that I would have to do would be to get lessons. So he was my first trumpet teacher, and he was a great influence on me because I could go to his house and we'd listen to a Clifford Brown record, and then we'd listen to a Chicago Symphony record. You know, I didn't have that much money then, so I didn't even pay him. And he would teach me for 3 or 4 hours every Saturday. It was hip. I learned a lot from him.
So he turn you on to classical music, or?
Well, being around him, that turned me on to orchestral classical music. But even when I was studying with him, I wasn't really interested in playing classical music. It wasn't until like a year later when I heard Maurice Andre. I stayed with him. Started studying with Norman Smith, who was playing first trumpet with the New Orleans Philharmonic then. And then I really became interested.
He turned you on to the piccolo trumpet? You still
piccolo? Well, he didn't, but another guy did. But I knew about it by then. A guy named Bill Fielder. He sold me my first piccolo trumpet. Herseth played that piccolo trumpet.
All right, and then you got into the classical, right? You did a concerto with the New Orleans Philharmonic.
That was when I was 14.
Right, you did also when you were 16, you played with
Brandenburg.
Right.
That's the hardest piece in the world.
Bach?
Yeah.
So you want to talk about that, the classical influence, or?
No, I mean, that doesn't really, that is not really an influence on my jazz playing. I mean, I see them as two separate entities or whatever. So, I mean, classical music, I enjoy the music, but it's basically from the European tradition, and jazz is from the American tradition, which the two musics are together because they're both Western musics. But the joining of the musics took place in the beginning. So, you know, it's like both musics have similar elements like harmonic concepts, rhythmic, but jazz is different. So I don't really...
More spontaneity into...
Well, jazz is much more creative than orchestral performance, not orchestral composition. Right. Jazz is like you have to really... Plus you have to know what everybody is playing, and the drums. You know, that's a phenomenon that is created by jazz musicians. The drum set. The time is always in motion in a jazz piece, whereas in classical music, the time is set up by the composer. And it can be, you know, whatever idea he wants to get across to the listener, he can take as long as he wants. Whereas the jazz musician, you have to realize that the drums are always playing in the form, which is the harmony passing over on a certain amount of time, is always changing with the form because of the drums. So that increases the difficulty. So you have to spontaneously create, you know, make it make sense and have thematic development while the form is always in motion.
Do you ever think about, consider fusing the two genres together, or maybe doing like a jazz, because you don't like fusion too much, do you?
Well, I like it, but I like fusion. I mean, everybody thinks that I don't like it. I like it, but it's just that Fusion, I mean, to me, fusion was a media contraption. It was just something that the media made up. It was another way to let a whole lot of white musicians make more money.
Right.
Like the Brecker Brothers and Spyro Gyro and Pat Metheny and you name all of those guys. You know, the black people. I mean, all the great black jazz musicians or great white jazz musicians, great jazz musicians who came before, didn't make any money. Right. And now all of a sudden we have this thing they call fusion, which is just putting a funk beat down, which has been in existence, you know, since Fats Domino. Before, and some cat plays bebop licks on top of it. But that's not jazz, you know.
Well, do you think there's a lot of the record companies doing that? Are there pressure on...
It's the musicians too, though. You know, it's the record companies who don't really give a damn about the music. But it's the musicians, the jazz musicians who allow themselves to be manipulated by...
A lot of times they really don't have the choice, though, do they?
They always have the choice. You have the choice to either do what the record company tells you or get dropped.
Or go to another label.
You know, that's the choice that you have. And that's, I mean, that's...
So what if CBS says to you, Wynton, you know,
I'll be on another label.
Just say that's it?
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of record companies. I have the product.
Yeah, but I mean, small jazz label couldn't promote you the way, you know, CBS has done.
But see, I think that music of a certain level doesn't make a difference. Like John Coltrane, I'm trying to learn how to play. I'm not interested in that. John Coltrane would have been known regardless of what label he was on. You know what I mean? Because once you reach the level that he was reaching, I'm not even insinuating I'm close to that, then there's no record company makes no difference.
Well, did he sell albums though? I mean, he really didn't.
He sold Love Supreme sold 400,000 or 500,000 copies.
That's over a long period of time, though, right?
Yeah, but that's really, a sale is a sale. You know, they still record Schoenberg Leader, and that sells 10,000, 5,000. Why should that be recorded and jazz can't be recorded? Is that commercially viable? No.
All right, so you're just doing the acoustic thing right now.
That's what I'm doing.
Are you all going to always stay with the acoustic? You're going to move over to electric and start getting into electronics? Because I mean, so much of music today is.
I might get into that, but if I get into electronics, I don't mean that I'll figure out a way to make it sound hip. You know, I won't do it where the bass is going boom, ba boom, ba boom, and the drums are going psh, ah, ba boom. That's the same thing, man. It's boring. You know, I'd have to figure out something to do that was creative.
All right. So you studied at Juilliard, or you had a scholarship right out of high school with them, right?
All right, and I moved to New York when I was 17 and went there.
Right, and then summer of '79, you were playing with Art Blakey, you found yourself, right?
Summer of '80.
Summer of '80, all right.
That's a mistake.
All right,
no, summer of '80.
All right, so here you are, right out of high school, 18, and all these greats, right? Hank Mobley and Freddie Hubbard and all these guys that played with Clifford Brown, and here you are, 18. I mean, must have had how'd you deal with all that pressure, and what kind of effect did it have on you?
Well, it was all right because Art, I mean, I didn't confuse myself with them because I respect these guys for what they are, you know, and I don't really try to, you know, catch say, oh, you the next Clifford Brown, you know, that's not in my mind because I grew up listening to Clifford,
Marsalis, right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
But Art Blakey is not the kind of guy that makes you feel pressure. You know, when you're in his band, you're in his band.
Right.
And if you aren't supposed to be there, you wouldn't be there.
Right.
So everything was cool, pressure-wise, because he didn't, you know, he's not like that.
All right. So did you gain, as far as him being such a great band leader, you're leading your own band now? What kind of effect did that have on you with that?
Well, he's a great band leader, and being around him helped me because of the way he treats the music. It's like he'll have guys in his band who knows more than he does about certain things, and he's not embarrassed to let another guy run something. You know what I mean? He's not always, he doesn't get embarrassed.
He's a dictator, in other words,
He's in his 60s, man, and we can go up to him and say, don't play that once we were in a rehearsal, and he was playing something on the drums, and I said, no, I don't play that.
And
he looked up to me and he goes, what you want me to play? So I said, well, maybe you could try it. And then when I realized, I said, damn, man, I told him not to play something, right? But he didn't even, you know, it's not like, I'm Art Blakey, don't tell me how to. You know, he's real, because you know that he's the leader of the band if you look at it. And not just because he's older.
Right.
You know, he sculpts the sound. He doesn't have a hang-up, egotistical hang-ups.
Right. So is that where you run your band?
Sure, I learned from that. You just get the best available guys.
Right.
And you try to shape the music as much as you can and let them play. And the band concept will develop as you play, as the years pass.
Right.
Because it's a complex thing. You know, it's not like a rock band.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize what goes into being a band leader.
They don't. They don't.
Right. So do you write out all the music for your?
I write out most of the arrangements.
All right.
Also, I'll just say, learn this part on this record. You know, also I'll say, we should do it this way.
All right. So then you, after that, you played with Herbie Hancock, right?
Right.
Ron Carter and Tony Williams. Want to talk about that
That
experience?
was a great experience. Those are great. They're phenomenal musicians, and I learned a lot of stuff about rhythm sections from them.
All right.
Like the time is a very important element of jazz, and the things that they do are very complex, stuff that is not talked about a lot.
Right.
Like you have the time going 4, and Ron will be playing 3, and the chord changes will be moving in 3. Also, it's so many complex things going. And Tony is so polyrhythmic.
Right.
He'll be playing like different things on different beats or accents on 4 or 1. It's complex. And Herbie, it's like a history. It's like learning the history of jazz by playing with them.
All right. So those guys, you recorded your album in Japan, right?
Right.
With
Half
the first
of it.
All right. And then you went back and you recorded
with
the
younger
States.
guys, right?
Right. So how do you like the way that album came out? And
it's all right. I like it. It's all right. The next one will be better.
All right. What you gonna have more of a theme, central theme on your next album?
Probably. It'll be more thematic. I just wanted to get as many different things out as I could.
All right.
Different concepts and stuff to give me a broader base.
Pretty straight ahead. It doesn't really feel like, it sounds like you're playing just straight ahead jazz.
Oh, that's all it's ever gonna be.
All right. What about classical?
I'm doing a classical album in December with the Prague Chamber Orchestra. And I'll play Humble Trumpet Concerto and Tomasi. So it's straight classical music. It's not, classical sounding jazz. Because I don't like all that kind of stuff.
You don't think you'll ever do that?
It's just a way for classical musicians to see everything is designed. Jazz doesn't need that.
Right.
See what I mean? Like jazz doesn't need rock. Jazz doesn't need funk, because all of that music comes out of jazz. 20th century jazz does not need 20th century classical music. Because 20th century classical music is devoid of a lot of thematic impetus, except Hindemith, Bartok, and Stravinsky, and Schoenberg to a lesser degree. Jazz musicians don't need that.
And what about the different attitudes that a classical musician would have as compared with a jazz musician?
Well, they're uptight. They're uptight because they know that we are the superior musicians.
All right.
It's true. I play in orchestras.
All right.
Like you never hear a jazz musician cut an orchestral musician now. Like I wouldn't say, oh man, Bartok is sad or Bartok is blah blah. I'd say some great music. But see, classical musicians, guys like Aaron Copland, who stole half of their entire rhythmic repertoire from jazz, they'll stand up and go, oh, it's primitive music, and then you listen to their piece and it's ba-bam, bam, imitation of jazz rhythms. So, we don't have to do that.
Right, they get treated a lot better, don't they?
Of course, because they are, they are.
Why do you think that is?
Well, number one, they're white. That's number one. Number two, they have an entire historical and social, so all the social customs, everything supports them. They get all of the grant money. And it's like the people who have all of the money want their children to be like them, not like us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because we are associated with being dope addicts and, which guys, some of the jazz musicians take dope. A lot of them don't. A lot of doctors are dope addicts.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
it's all these stereotypes.
Your stereotypes, man. We suffer from negative publicity. And they get all of the positive. F. Juilliard is all classical.
Right.
You can't say jazz in that building. You better not say
alarm goes off, right?
Jazz. Jazz. Guys ask me all the time, what did you do at Juilliard? I said, I play classical music.
Right.
And then you go play 20th century music and it's all pitiful jazz imitations.
Right.
And I'll go to theory classes and I'll have classical teachers going, this is the first time that ever happened in 20th century music. I'll say, but wait, Duke Ellington did this in 1930. Well, that doesn't really count. Why doesn't it count? You know what I mean? It's like history is always being retaught the incorrect way.
Right.
And that's the only thing that I'm trying to combat against, without cutting anybody down.
Right.
Like the rock musicians should make their money.
Right.
The funk musicians, they deserve that because they put on shows and stuff.
Right.
But we are preservers of American culture, and we deserve the respect for that, if not the money.
Right.
I don't want to fill 50,000 people in a hall, man. I just want whoever is there to listen to the music and know that something that's creative and very difficult is taking place.
Right.
That's all, because we don't play blues over and over again. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, 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 bang.
So do you play for other musicians, or do you keep that in mind, or do you do it more for the audience, just for the people?
I do it for both. The music is challenging because I personally believe that you should make your music as difficult as you can possibly make it, but while still remaining simple.
Right.
But I think that if the audience doesn't understand it, it doesn't make sense to play it.
Right.
Of course, that's a small, select audience. I don't want to play for a lot of people because they can't understand what's happening.
All right, so will all the success spoil Wynton Marsalis? I mean, will I have a...
No, because I'm not making any money. So I'm not going to get spoiled because I know I have a lot to learn and I'm still trying.
All right, that's great. And you have a new album, Father and Sons?
Fathers and Sons, right. What's my father's album?
Oh, it's your father's album,
right?
And you're just the son.
Right, with the sons.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Fathers is first.
So you're gonna be playing on do a lot of studio work?
Well, I'm just record albums. I mean, I'm not gonna like play.
Start playing on other people's albums.
No, I'm not doing that.
All right, so we got to wrap it up. It's great to have you, Wynton.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening in on Backstage, and I'm your host, Steve Barron. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.